welcome to Take Me With You, episode 16. I'm Ryan.
And I'm Cheryl. We are two well-traveled people who want to go everywhere.
But that's just not going to happen. So instead, we'll travel vicariously by inviting a guest to share their unique travel stories with us.
Today we are talking to Darryl. Darryl is my boyfriend! Whoa!
Imagine that.
I'm the loud one in this relationship, so if you can't tell by probably all the volume equalizing I'm doing, hopefully people can't tell as much. Yep.
Oh, was that you wanting me to talk?
Yeah.
Okay.
Say hello.
Hello, everyone.
Yeah, I was going to say, so far, no one actually knows that you even have a boyfriend because they can't hear.
Yeah, it's all in her head.
You
she
are
took
the
this
voices
trip
in her
alone.
head.
She's just sitting here talking to herself.
Oh my goodness.
Other than being your boyfriend, what do we need to know about Darryl, Cheryl?
Darryl works for the Meals on Wheels program and in Eastern Washington. I almost said Central Washington. Do you call it Eastern Washington?
It's all the same. Central Washington.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. It makes me feel less like I live in Eastern Washington if I call it Central Washington.
Everybody from the western side calls it Eastern Washington no matter
Yes.
where it is. But when I think of Eastern Washington, I think of Spokane area.
Okay.
So, a little different.
What do you think of, Ryan?
Well, I think it's whether or not you include a Central Washington as a designation.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think there's a Western Washington, Eastern Washington, which is divided by the Cascades.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you include Central Washington as a possible category, then I think I rethink about it.
Yeah, I think I consider Central and Eastern different just because of the climates. Central Washington's more of a desert, and Eastern Washington has more pine forests and foothills. So
I guess I didn't know that. To me, it's all desert. So sorry.
Oh, it's fine.
Lessons of the day.
So, Darryl, we've got a set of questions that we typically ask all of our guests. So, first of all, and this one will be interesting to hear how you decide to answer. Why do you travel?
I am actually very late to traveling. Most of my life, I haven't. I've started recently just because I want to experience different things. So I guess for me, traveling is purely just not novel, but a very new experience for me. And I like to try different things. I like to do new things. So for me, going out and doing all of these things and the change, it's huge. It's fun. I really enjoy it.
Cool. So the fact that you're relatively new to travel, was your lack of travel previously, was that a choice or it's just kind of the way things worked out?
Kind of the way things worked out. I didn't really have anywhere I said, I need to go and do this. And, I didn't have the funds for it or this or that. I had different priorities in my life. So
Sure.
Now it's just something that I can do. So I enjoy doing.
Awesome. So what type of traveler are you?
That's tough. I mean, like, as a new travel, I guess new. But
Okay.
aside from that, I don't know. I mean, what would be the types that you would consider types?
That question is actually intentionally vague so that you can define that however you want to.
Okay. So, yeah, I guess learning. I'm a learning traveler. So I'm experiencing it and figuring out what I enjoy about it and what the pitfalls are in it. And, I've got a pretty good guide for it right now. So
Really? Who might that guy be? Oh, our podcast. Oh, that's so nice of you. So sweet. Thank you.
so far, half of it. You're doing great, Ryan.
Oh my goodness.
Number one fan right there. Love it.
Well, one thing interesting that I've learned about what type of traveler you are is that, like, you are an introvert.
Yes.
And so, as I've been learning, like, in travel, like, basic human needs and life doesn't go away. So, like, for me, I've learned, like, okay, I need to take care of myself or stuff like that. And I think you're seeing, like... Because at first when we talked about travel together, you're like, oh, yeah, we could do this and this. And then I was like, okay, but also you want to rest so we can do that. And you're like, no, it's okay. And I was like, No, but like you should still take care of yourself in the midst of travel. So like I'd be interested to hear what you've learned about yourself so far.
Sure. I always planned a lot of the smaller trips that I have taken with a day at the end to relax before I had to go back to work or whatever in life, just so that I could kind of recollect myself. But the bigger ones that I've taken now, I have learned that taking that time in between makes the rest of the trip a lot more enjoyable for me because I don't feel as pushed or stressed. So I guess that's one of the big things that I've learned is that it is still very important to seek out that time that I do need, or, you know, the things that I need for my comfort so that I can enjoy it. If I'm not enjoying it, then there's no point in doing it. So I also have learned that I very much don't need a plan. I just need the big things outlined. So I like to kind of work on the fly for a lot of stuff. I don't like a lot of stuff all outlined per minute, per day. So for me, a lot of what I enjoy is, let's do this today. This is the one thing we're going to do. And then from there, we'll see what else we can do.
So when you say the big things, what are the big things that you definitely want to have?
Any kind of travel arrangements that we need, places to stay, you know, assuming that I would have a place to sleep would be nice. So things like that. I don't want to just be showing up at hotels without reservations because I worked in hotels long enough to know that sometimes that doesn't work out the way you want it to, and you end up sleeping in your car or something you don't want to be doing.
And you don't want to be sleeping in your car?
No, it's never comfortable.
Okay. Cool. And so then what would you say is your number one travel tip?
I knew you were going to ask me that, and I totally spaced thinking about it.
That's okay.
I think my number one travel tip is to remain open to changes because things are not going to go the way you're planning all of the time, and you better be able to just kind of roll with it and adjust your plans as needed. So that goes back into the having the big stuff outlined, but not really worrying about every little detail.
Yeah.
Cool.
I think that's a great tip.
Okay, bonus question, because you worked in hotels for so long. What are ways that all of us who are listening to this what's like the biggest way we can not be a jerk at a hotel? And then what's like the best, like, go out of your way positive customer experience you've had? Like, what's something awesome that you could do as a guest? Yeah, okay, bonus questions.
Honestly, and it's going to sound like just pure common sense when I say this, but just remember that the people working at the hotels are people. Most people act like, and I understand a lot of it, it's, well, I'm spending money that I've saved up, I have this trip planned, and I expect everything to go perfectly, but sometimes it doesn't, and these people are doing their best to provide you with a service, and if you're not happy, that's fine, you can speak up, but do it in a professional or, you know, a positive manner. Seek out some, you know, guidance. Ask them for their help. Don't demand it. So that'd be my big thing for that. What was the second one?
What's like either an awesome customer experience you've had where customers been fantastic, or just something that like would make a big difference in the way like we treated people at a hotel?
We had a lot of corporate guests who would stay every week, and we saw a lot of people, repeat guests, over and over and over. And we had one couple from Canada who came down twice a year, and they were the most friendly. We basically considered them like family for the hotel. They would bring down snacks, they would come in and sit and talk to us. They had their pets with them, so we get to play with their dogs. It was great. They made that job worthwhile for me. People like that. So getting to experience that side of people as opposed to the people who are there every week and they just are doing their job and they don't want to really talk or socialize, those kinds of people who do make a big difference. So
that's very cool.
Nice. All right. So what is the trip you are going to tell us about this week, Darryl?
We took a trip to Southern California. We went to San Diego and spent a day in LA.
Okay. And what makes this trip unique for you?
Unique for me. It was my first trip in an airplane.
Woo!
First time I had flown anywhere.
All right. So I think maybe you need to tell us about the airport experience to start with then.
It actually was pretty quick and mellow. There wasn't a whole lot of problems that we had. We kind of jumped in, and we had one moment where we were going to go through the security check, and they just basically told us to go to a different gate because it was going to be faster. And clearly was not faster. I think she just kind of didn't want to work. So, we ended up leaving basically an empty area and going to one that was just full of people. But it still was pretty quick.
Okay, so this was at SeaTac Airport, is that correct?
Correct,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. So did they send you to the center
Yeah.
security thing? So I've had them do that before to me as well. And having done quite a bit of travel through there, I think most of the time it actually is faster. But even though there's more people there, because they always have more like lanes open
That's
because
fair.
it's in the center. So there are more people that go through, but the line actually moves faster than if you're on one of the ones that are on like the side.
Mm-hmm.
That time it definitely wasn't, because I've gone to we're at the one on the right. That's like closer to the entrance to the end gates. And I've gone through that one a lot of the times, and like looking at the line, it would have been like 15 minutes and we would have been through
10 people in the line.
And so we're like, okay, yeah. So I mean, it was funny because I almost had a moment where I was like, oh no, we'll still go here, and then I was like, no, and then we got to the other one, and I had the moment of like, should we go back?
Should we just turn around?
And then it was like, well, we're in a line now, so like
when
whatever.
you're in the grocery store and you decide to jump into a different checkout
Yeah,
line, and you're like,
yeah.
I made regrets for this.
Yeah.
I regret everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but you'd never been through security like that before then either.
I have been through security checkpoints in government buildings, but not in an airport. That's a little bit more extensive than what I've been through, yes.
Was there anything that was confusing?
No, actually. Well, I mean, I think it helped a lot to have you there and kind of explain stuff ahead of time. But honestly, if I hadn't, it wouldn't have been too bad. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. There's a lot of signage everywhere, and people are talking and telling you what to do. So as long as you pay attention, it's not a problem. But
Did you see anyone not paying attention?
I saw a lot of people not paying attention.
We had our fun little commentary to each other about all the people we saw around us that were like, oh man, what are you doing? Yeah. How about the actual like airplane experience? Like, was that what you expected, or what was that like?
It was pretty much what I had expected. The first one that we were on was actually a really nice aircraft. It was, had a lot of the in-flight stuff that a lot of other ones don't have that I've seen. So it was really nice. It was pretty comfortable seats and a lot of more room than I expected. The second one on the way back was a little different, a little bit more cramped, but it was still pretty comfortable. So overall, I mean, other than a little bit of turbulence on the flight back, it wasn't bad at all. It was pretty comfortable the whole way. Pretty easy flight.
So how would you compare traveling via plane versus any of the other types of transportation that you've done when traveling?
I enjoy trains the most, purely because, I mean, like, it does take quite a bit longer, but I liked the scenery and the actual travel. It's very comfortable. For me, it was. Cars, if I'm driving, it's a lot more mentally exhausting to drive long distances. So the flight was a lot easier that way. If I'm riding in a car, I kind of like the same as a train. It's fun to, get that scenery and the experience of traveling because you get to spend a little more time looking.
So I'm curious, what did you know about air travel just through like movies or like, I don't know, just like, media or like cultural osmosis, or I don't know, like what did you already know about that?
Well, I seek information from a lot of sources. So for me, it was more just making my own viewpoint of it, seeing what I thought it would be. So I guess what I knew of it was that it was very security oriented now. And there was a lot of people that were going to be stressed out in a hurry. And really, it wasn't too bad. And that may have been the time of day that we were there and, where we were going and where we were at the time. But it didn't really seem like that to me. So, and maybe it was just that we were going on a vacation. So for me, if I'm not feeling any kind of stress, I don't really mind the rest of the world.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I don't know that. I wonder. So the idea of that, like everybody being stressed and in a hurry, so often if you see airport stuff in movies, people are stressed because they're like rushing to get their plane, or they're stressed about someone who's arriving or leaving that they don't know if they're going to be there or see them or have a difficult conversation or whatever.
I feel like most of it's just like telling someone that you love them.
Yeah,
I
for
feel
sure.
like that's like most airport scenes.
Yeah, and I feel really let down because I didn't see a single person propose in that airport.
Oh, man. Next time, Darryl.
I didn't propose. I'm sorry.
There's always next time.
But yeah, I guess I never thought about that before, but as I think about the airports that I've been in, I would not say that the general feeling is stressed. It's more waiting and boredom.
Yeah, and that's very much what I experienced. There were, while we were waiting to board, it was just sitting. So yeah, I mean, I guess the reason that I would have come away with that was because it was very much in movies you're watching people run, and you feel that kind of anxiety for them in the movie. So
yeah,
maybe that's the only reason that I really felt that way, or maybe it was just the way I perceived it before, just because I would imagine that travel is stressful.
Mm-hmm. Well, but I think too, definitely in movies, like I keep having this scene in Home Alone, like running through my brain.
Oh,
where they're like running to make the flight or whatever. But I think also airport experience is so uneventful most of the time that you're not going to hear stories of people being in an airport doing something if it's not more dramatic than just sitting and waiting.
Nobody
so the
wants
only
to talk about how
things
they
you're going
sat
to
for
hear
an hour and played on their phone.
Yeah, exactly. Like no one's going to tell that story because it's boring. So you're going to only hear it's like, oh my gosh, and we just barely had enough time to make our connecting flight, and so we were running down the terminal. Like even separate from movies and media, I think culturally, just socially and experientially, you probably would be less likely to hear those types of stories.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Now we did use my method for booking seats, and it worked. So I did want to share about this.
Yep.
So I don't know if I've shared about my strategy if you're flying alone of what to do. Have we talked about this, Ryan?
No, because no, I don't think so.
Do you know about my strategy?
I know about your seat strategy when it's two people.
Okay.
But I don't know about your single strategy.
Okay, well, we'll talk about the single strategy and then the couple strategy.
Okay.
So the couple strategy, I used it for this one, and it worked 1 out of 2 times, so I feel pretty good about that.
It was successful both times if you think about it.
Sure, yeah. I mean, it accomplished what we wanted to do. So I figured Darryl would enjoy being next to the window, and so I wanted us to have a window and a middle seat, thinking about the 3 across. Yep. But what my dad told me a while ago is that you should book a window and an aisle seat if you're traveling with someone, because that middle seat alone is the least desirable spot. So it's less likely to get booked if it's not a full flight, which means it's possible that you get 3 seats for 2 people.
Right.
And then if you don't, if there's a person there, like what a nice thing to do for a stranger and say, hey, would you like my aisle seat so I can sit next to my boyfriend? Like, that's just good news. If someone's like, hey, like, because no one wants to be in the middle seat. And so on our way down, no one was between us. So we just had 3 seats for the 2 of us. And then on our way back up, there was a girl there, and I gave her the aisle seat and sat in the middle. And I mean, she seemed more neutral than happy about that, but maybe internally she was happy about that.
Or maybe she really, truly didn't care.
Yeah, like she might have just not cared.
It was 6 a.m. She probably didn't care
It
about
was
a lot
very
of
early in the morning, yeah. And so, so that was cool because then like we had a little more space going one way. If you are traveling single, then find, like, I like the middle seat. Ryan, which one do you like?
It depends on the size of the plane.
Okay, let's talk about like domestic, like just one aisle.
It still depends on the size of the plane.
Okay.
Because for me, flying is all about legroom. because I have
Okay.
very long legs, and
Okay.
they have been decreasing the amount of leg room. And I typically will fly with a backpack, and I like it to be in the seat in front of me so that I can access a book to read or snacks or whatever, instead of having to like get up and get it out of the overhead bin.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, trying to figure out which seat has the most legroom, and it depends. Sometimes it's the middle seat.
Oh,
Because
the width.
the window seat, the problem with the window seat is if the plane is small enough, the side of the plane will curve inwards, and you actually lose some legroom on the edge of the plane. And in the aisle, the nice thing about the aisle is if there's no one going through, you can kind of stick your leg out in the aisle a little bit. So you got a little bit of flex room there. However, I've learned that often the actual storage space under the seat in front of you is smaller in the aisle than the other two spots. So
Gotcha.
it really varies. The window seat is great if the plane is big enough.
Got it. Okay.
But if it's small enough, then the window seat doesn't have a lot, and the aisle seat doesn't even have a lot. So the middle seat actually has the most legroom.
That's so funny. For me, it's all about the fact that I want to lean on something. And so I like the window because I want to lean on the window.
So then would your strategy be to book a window seat?
Well, that's what I want. Like,
Okay.
I like a window seat.
So is that a strategy? Or is that just the seat that you book?
The strategy is you book the window seat where there is an aisle seat taken and a middle seat is not taken, because if the aisle and the middle are available, then two people might book it together. But kind of same thing, like it leaves only the middle seat alone for somebody to book. But you book the seat you want, obviously, because no one's going to agree to trade with you. I do know people who prefer the aisle just because they want to get up whenever they want, which kind of makes sense. You know, like if they want the freedom to get up without asking other people to move. But I also will put a backpack in front of me if I'm traveling light, and then I just don't have any legroom, but I don't care because my legs are short. And also I kind of like being small and a little ball, so that's fine with me. But
yeah, I can't be small and a little ball. My body doesn't really do that.
Me either.
Cool.
So Darryl.
Yes.
What type of seat, now that you've been on a whopping 2 planes, do you prefer?
Well, I only had the window seat for both of them. So I enjoyed the window seat. It was nice. I too like to lean on stuff, and I never know which armrest is mine when I'm in a middle seat. So for me, it's nice to know that, this is just either somebody else's or mine. So I kind of like that. And it's more comfortable for me to turn a little, so I can kind of angle my body a little bit more in the window seat, I noticed, than I probably could have in the middle seat. So I kind of enjoyed that too.
Okay.
And traveling with him, I've hardly ever traveled with people since I was a kid. But traveling with him was fun because then, like, it felt like we had more space because I moved our armrests and then just was like a koala pretty much. And so
she had more space. I was...
Great.
But yeah, cool. Well, let's hear about the trip. Where did we go? I forgot.
You
just
You're a liar.
We went to San Diego to visit your friend Jennifer and Mark, and we met their little baby. Yeah, it's the first time you've met her, right?
Yeah.
First time. So that was the impetus for the trip. That was why we decided to go. I think we just kind of decided that I needed to fly somewhere, and that you needed to go see little baby Sage. So we went to go visit them. We landed pretty early in the morning, and then we went out to lunch with them at, what was the place called?
Naked Cafe.
Which was good. It was a lot of vegetarian food.
Naked Cafe.
Yeah, it's a nudist cafe on the beach.
I mean,
okay.
Keeps things out of the food, so...
Does it though?
They were all bald as well, so it's nice.
Okay.
We went out there. We met Jen and Mark there, and we had lunch, and then we went down to the beach. So that was a lot of fun.
I'm sorry, we got to go back. Why is it called the Naked Cafe?
It's a lot of vegetarian and
I'm guessing the idea is that it's like whole natural food,
natural
or
foods.
that type of
raw
stuff.
food that has been prepared from scratch. So it was a lot more
natural,
not processed foods.
Yeah.
So
Okay. I didn't realize that naked was a word that meant that. Okay.
Have you heard
great.
of Naked Juice,
No?
the brand?
How can you have naked juice? You don't put clothes on juice.
there's no label on it.
Is it like, it's just not in a cup? Don't we call that a puddle? I don't understand marketing. People are dumb. Sorry.
It's fine. So we went to the cafe and then we went down to the beach. I don't like sand. So for me, the beach was
Because it's coarse and it gets everywhere?
Yeah. And also I didn't know that I was going to be going to the beach, so I was wearing jeans. It's kind of, unfortunate. But it was still nice to, I mean, like if you're going to go to San Diego, you got to go to a beach just, you know, to see the beach. So we went down.
Sure.
I mean, you know, in theory, you're supposed to, right? It's kind of one of their attractions.
And you guys went in December, is that correct?
Yes.
Which I think that was part of the fun of going to the beach, was just like, it was all cold up here and in Washington.
20 degrees here.
Yeah, and so that was just fun being like, it was in the 70s, and we both of us ended up buying shorts on the trip just because we were like, oh, it's warm, and it was, I think that was just kind of fun to like dip our feet in the ocean and be like, it's December, and we're on the beach.
Yeah. And it's really funny to hear everybody that lives there saying, oh, it's really cold, and like they've all got coats on, and it's just climate adjustment.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I'm like, oh, I'm sweating all over the place. It's only 70.
Yep.
So it was fun to go to the beach, though. I mean, it is definitely a different experience than, you know, the Oregon coast, which I've been to. It's a different style. So it was fun to go down there. You
haven't flown before, but have you driven to California before? Like, have you been to California?
Yeah, actually, about 8 years ago, I drove to Sacramento. So kind of stopped on the way down through Oregon on 97. We stopped off at Crater Lake and things like that. So we went down that way. And then we got to Sacramento. We were actually going to go stay in Yosemite Park. And we got to Sacramento, and it was the summertime, and they had just the worst forest fires. So we just decided to turn around and come back. So we didn't make it to the end of the trip, but we got down to Sacramento, so it was fun.
Okay, so you had been to California, but not been to the coast.
Yes,
before, because Sacramento's inland a little bit.
Yes.
Okay, so this was your first time on a California beach, so not just in San Diego, but any beach in California.
It's my first time seeing palm trees and.
Yay!
Wait, actually?
Yeah, actually. Because we were inland all the way through Central California and on the highway, so we didn't see any.
Yeah, there's palm trees like in the Bay Area, but that's closer to the coast. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, interesting.
Like we went past Mount Shasta, so it was, you know, not palm tree area.
No, definitely not palm trees by Shasta. No, that's more that kind of eastern or central, depending, Washington desert type feel.
Yeah, it was fun to do that, but it was a completely different California experience this time. Yeah.
So tell them about the big thing that you were most excited for on this trip.
The big thing that I was most excited for?
Yes.
San Diego Zoo.
Yes.
Yeah, we got to go to the zoo, which was awesome. I'm a huge fan of zoos, and I love going to them, and it was just so much fun to block out an entire day to just spend the day with Cheryl walking around and, you know, experiencing that. And I mean, it's a very well-known zoo, and they had a lot of very well done habitats, so it was fun. We got to see the red pandas, which are my favorite. We spent about half an hour watching penguins because that's Cheryl's favorite.
Oh, it is? I had no idea. So wait, hold on. Half an hour watching penguins, Cheryl's favorite. How long watching the red panda?
About 5 minutes.
Okay.
I got my fill. I didn't need any longer.
He did, because I like lose my mind whenever I see penguins.
Oh, there's video of it.
And then it was really sweet because the penguin exhibit's nice because like you can see like above them at first, and then you slowly walk down and you can see like kind of like see their land area at your eye level, and you keep going, and it's more like an aquarium, and you can see them swimming. So there's
would you
different
say that
sections.
it starts at a bird's eye view?
Yeah, which is higher than penguins can go. So,
What do they jump?
yeah, they could jump. They could stand on top of an iceberg and see things. But then, I mean, also on top of that, I was just stoked about all of it. And then it was really cute because Darryl was like, I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to get you away from this. And then I was like, okay, I think I'm good. And then we got like one excitement dance about the red panda, and then he was like, all right, we're good.
That's the extent of my excitement, though. So it was really fun. I enjoyed it, and they had such a huge variety. Like, I've been to other zoos, and they're pretty limited on what they actually have as habitats and displays for animals, and they had a lot of very well done informational displays as well, not just the animals. So it was fun to go through all of that and read about a lot of different things. They had a very huge, I guess every display or habitat had a different plaque that read about what prehistoric animal was closest related that lived in this area to whatever animal they had. So it was kind of fun to read about that as well.
They did?
Yeah.
So
that's why we have pictures of you with giant eagles and stuff.
Oh, okay.
So Darryl, it sounds like you are a reader then. And
yes.
I say that not as in like a reader of books, although that may also be true, but at museums or zoos or things, there are people that read all of the text that is by the exhibit, and there are people who do not. And it sounds like you are a reader.
Oh, I enjoy learning about it. So yeah, if they've got enough information on there, I'm going to sit there and read the whole thing. So if it keeps my attention, I definitely read.
So what percentage of the different plaque things would you say that you read at the San Diego Zoo?
That's a really rough estimate.
Sure.
75%.
Okay.
So most of them, and I think the big ones that I didn't were like when we went into the aviaries, because they were the signs were just too much on one sign. So and it just felt like kind of chaotic with the birds and everything, which is fun, but I didn't want to stand there and read while there were a bunch of birds flying around my head. So
yeah.
They had about 5 aviaries at that zoo.
5 separate ones?
Yeah, and they were big. It was so cool.
Do they have different kinds of birds in each
A lot of
one?
them had not, I guess, the same kinds, but they also had a few different ones in each one. So it was, they filled them up with the same ones, and then they would have the few key ones in the different aviary that were different from the other ones.
Okay. I guess I'm just in my head, I'm trying to figure out what the thinking was for why they would have separate ones. Was it just because they needed more space, so they would build another one?
Well, they were all in different habitats. So some of them were more jungly feeling, and some were more, like in the forest. And then there was a different one that was just kind of like a plains land kind of thing.
But they were the same birds in each one?
Probably about 3/4 the same birds. And then there were some that I think were specific to that habitat. So they picked the ones that could live there and kind of filled up the aviary with them, and then put the big ones in.
Just had some filler birds.
Yeah, I mean, that's really how it felt. But
like a flower arrangement where you like get the cheap flower to fill it out or whatever.
Yeah, so those birds are just the carnations.
Yep. The baby's
I mean,
breath.
it was kind of fun, though, because if you didn't get a chance to see one in one of the other ones, you still got a chance to see that bird in a different one. So it was
So then were all the aviaries nearby each other, or were they like separated throughout the zoo based on like habitat or zones or things like that?
Right. They were spread out all over based on different habitats. So as you walked around, you could go into one, and then you'd probably spend about a half an hour at other things, and then you'd find another one that you could walk into. So
the first time we found a second one, I thought we were just like looped back to the first one.
Well, they had like 3 entrances into a couple of them.
Yeah,
so it would have been real easy to do that.
So then is the zoo organized based on habitat? Like overall? Or is it based on like type of, well, it can't be type of animal if all the aviaries aren't next to each other.
Yeah, it's based on habitats. So like you had the Eastern Asia, and then there was, Africa and things like that. So as you walked around, they had it laid out so that you were walking through different regions of the world.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then, of course, because, I'm a science person. So I'm curious, when you have a zoo, I wonder how broad of a representation of the animal kingdom was there. So pandas, and penguins. So and the aviary. So we've got birds represented. We've got mammals represented.
There was a few different displays of fish.
Okay.
They had
Awful bugs.
Oh, yeah, they had bugs, reptiles. They had quite a few different things. There was actually a
Arthropods.
very large snake display.
Okay.
That Cheryl didn't want to spend very long at.
No.
What?
So it
I bet you could have
actually
found a time when you could have held a snake, Cheryl.
Ooh, no.
I could have got a picture of you with it.
Oh, I mean, I might do it for a picture.
I would say that they were very well represented in all of them there. So,
Did they have Nigeria? Nigeria?
I don't understand that word.
I don't know that one either. Oh, no. They were pretty limited on aquarium types of things.
It was just fish.
Yeah, I mean, like they had some in like the different displays for some of the other animals, but they weren't really specifically for the types of fish.
Okay.
So.
And that I mean, I wouldn't expect that you necessarily would, because generally you go to an aquarium for that sort of stuff. But
right.
Okay, but it sounds like they had a good representation.
Yeah, it was actually one of the bigger differences, like the bigger varieties that I've seen. So,
would you say that you are a zoo connoisseur?
Connoisseur? No, I've been to more than a handful of zoos, so I guess I know a little bit.
I feel like that might be above average.
That's actually when I went down to Sacramento. We ended up going to the zoo there, so that was actually their zoo was really well done too.
So what criteria do you use to determine the quality or goodness of a zoo?
I want to see animals in as close to their actual habitat as I can, and not just one animal in that habitat. I want to see it a little bit more natural, I suppose. I mean, I guess obviously you can't have it look natural in a zoo, but if you could get it as close as possible, that's how I want to see it. I want to see that they are not starving or dying. I want to actually see quality when I look at it. So, yeah, I like to see them living as close as they would outside of nature.
That makes sense.
And also, there's an exhibit where a cheetah and a dog live together because they're best friends.
I'm sorry, what?
I mean, just that. Like,
they were the cub and the puppy together, and they grew up in the same area. Yeah, I mean,
so it's weird because we walked up to the exhibit and saw a cheetah chilling on the ground, and then there was a little cave over further away, and I saw a head, and I was like, that looks just like a dog, and I was like, obviously it's not. But like that's funny because from this angle, I'd swear that's like a golden lab. Then we got closer and it was like, oh, it is. That's exactly what it is. And I was like, where's the fence between the two of them? And there's not one. And then apparently there's like a book about them in the gift shop that I guess we saw.
I guess it's pretty common, actually, for cheetahs to have another animal live with them. I had read about that afterwards as well. So,
interesting.
But, if the handlers ever go, the dog's the first thing that thing's going to eat, so... nature.
So would you guys say that how long did you spend at the zoo? Was that an all-day thing?
It's close to 7 hours.
Oh, definitely all day then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the only reason that we ended up leaving was because we had dinner plans. So, I mean...
Otherwise, you could have stayed longer.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
We
did
didn't
not
see
everything.
Yeah.
No.
Oh.
If you're going to go, I would suggest, and that's the only thing you want to do, make it 2 days, just so that you have the time to do it. I mean, you might not spend the whole second day there, but there's more to see.
Well, a good reason to make it 2 days is because the next day we went back to Balboa Park, which is right next to it, because I thought it'd be fun to walk around. Because I had gone there in college a couple times and walked around with friends, and there's like cool buildings and fountains and gardeny stuff. Not realizing that there's a lot of cool things right there that Darryl would have enjoyed going to.
Yes.
And so really, I think you could spend like 3 days. I don't know if there's hotels right there, but if there were, you could spend like 3 days just in Balboa Park doing the zoo. Because what all did we see that we didn't go to that you pretended to be mad at me
Oh, I was very disappointed that we missed out on the Science Center. They had an aviation museum that we didn't go to.
Natural History Museum.
Yeah, we missed all of the fun stuff.
Because you had to go to the beach or something.
Yeah, who wants sand when I can have knowledge?
Oh my.
But yeah, so I would say that like we talked about if we do go back sometime, maybe even staying near there, because we were staying with my friend. It was like a 45 minute drive north. And so, but because like it would be cool to go to those things. And then also there's like a cool little like art section with all these little shops of like different forms of art being sold. It was cool.
It was fun. I mean, it was nice to see it. But the biggest part about that little part of the park that I enjoyed was the geological museum that was in there.
Ooh. Oh yeah,
they had a lot of fossils and different kinds of gemstones and stuff in there.
Cool.
Yeah, it was awesome.
That was cool.
One final question about the zoo. You mentioned, it'd be better to do 2 days, but do you have to pay for entrance both days if you were to go for 2 days, or do they do like a Disneyland like multi-day pass?
I wouldn't be surprised if there was a 2-day pass for something like that, because it is more expensive than other zoos. I think it was close to $50 per person, and I feel like a lot of zoos are more at like 20 to 30 these days, like a nice zoo in like a larger city. And so, but just a place like that, I don't know. I mean, because I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if they had that, because there's so many other things down there, you know, like SeaWorld and other things that have that type of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we didn't look at that because we knew we were only going to be there a day, but I would not at all be surprised either if there was a multiple day pass for that. I mean, it's so big that it would be kind of silly of them not to offer that, because there are a lot of people who would go 2 days.
Cool.
Yeah. And they had a sky ride.
Oh, that was fun. Yes.
A
sky ride.
Gondola, whatever they're called.
Get in the gondola, and it takes you right over the top of the entire zoo and lands you on the other side of the zoo. So you can look down on all the habitats as you go over.
Oh, that is cool.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
That was really cool.
Kind of a short ride.
Included in the price?
Yeah.
Yes.
Included in admission, so you can ride it as many times as you wanted to.
Yeah, so like it goes from the south end to the north end of the zoo, right through the middle of it. And so you could like, because you start on the south end, so we took it first thing in the morning to get up to the north end and then come down. But what you could do is do that twice. Like you could go up, go down, and like meander through everything on like the east side of the park, and then do it again on the west side of
because we ended
zoo.
up walking back from the far end back up to the other end again anyway, so you could do that a couple times. It was really fun though, because when we were riding it over, looking down on the habitats, like you could see the animals in them. And the gorilla, you're high enough up that I was looking at the gorilla and it looked almost like animatronic, because you can't see enough of it to really make out whether or not it's real. And it just felt like looking down on something in a movie.
It was, so that was really cool. Yeah. And it's fun that it was included and everything too. So
that's fun.
Yeah.
They actually had a lot of things there that were just included with admission as well. So it wasn't like you had to spend money after you had spent money to get in.
And they have the La Brea tar pits at the zoo.
Wait, what do you mean they're at the zoo? You said you didn't go.
We didn't go because
it was at the zoo. We didn't have to go.
We already saw it. There was a display. I did take a photo. I'll have to post it on our Instagram. It was about the La Brea tar pits, and then they had this little like fenced off section you could look down into that was supposed to look like
it was Blackwater.
It's so like it was a bunch of fossils in it.
A model recreation.
Yeah.
Living diorama.
Yeah.
And at the time, we were planning on going to the tar pits when we, because we drove up to LA for a day, and so we thought we'd go there, and then end up just kind of hanging out and everything. And so we didn't go, but then it was funny because like, well, I mean, we kind of did, you know.
Yeah. I mean,
no,
I saw it.
You did not.
That was actually one thing that I was very excited about going. So the next time we're down, we'll have to go down there and see.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I was looking through my pictures from when I was there and looking at stuff, and I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Oh, I forgot about that. It was pretty. I mean, it's weird, but it's pretty cool.
That sounds fun though.
Yeah,
I like weird.
And weird,
it's just like
things that are educational are like my favorite. I like it if it's super interesting and different. So
yeah, well, and I mentioned this on a previous episode, but like you're just walking around I mean, it's kind of like a park, not a park like a zoo, but just like, like a city park or whatever. And there's just black goo bubbling up out of the middle of the grass. Just like in random places. And there's other parts where they've like...
That sounds really fun.
They had to put up temporary fences around like a tree in this area because there's just more black goo coming up out of the ground. So
it's like the apocalypse is happening.
That's what I said!
But really, really slowly. It's not like it's boiling or anything.
That's interesting.
It does sound like a video game that takes place during a post-apocalyptic time, and you're just at a park and there's just like black goo.
Yeah, but if it was in a video game, the goo would have like
zombies in it.
Yeah, or it'd be like radioactive and can give you special abilities or something.
I mean, how do you know it doesn't?
Because I poked it.
Did you drink it?
Did you poke it with your finger?
No. Ew, that would have been sticky. Poked it with a stick.
That's what happened to the dinosaurs. They were like, what is this?
It won't come off of me.
I'm pretty sure that actually it was much later than the dinosaurs because they talk about it being like woolly mammoths and the other one, mastodons. I don't remember if it was one or the other because I always get the two confused.
Saber-toothed tigers.
They have in their little museum, they do actually have
cool
skeletons of saber-toothed cats. Yeah.
Yeah, we should go there.
That'd be interesting. We'll plan that for our next trip.
Yeah. Yep.
There you go. And so, did you do anything while you were in LA then, or did you just hang out with Beth?
We ate. Yes, we did.
Yeah.
We went to Trejo's Tacos.
Ooh.
So Danny Trejo, the actor, I guess it's
never heard
his
of him.
chain or something. You'd recognize him probably if you saw him.
What's he been in?
Oh, now I can't even think of it.
Then I definitely recognize him.
Yeah, there you go. No, they had great food there.
So good.
Yeah. And then we met up with Beth there, so we were hanging out with her, and we had margaritas and tacos while we were sitting out on the patio in December. It was great, so it was nice out there. The weather was perfect for that, so it's really good to visit with her, and we spent some time catching up with her. That was really the whole reason that we took the trip to LA, was just to kind of go see her. And
yeah,
I think,
and in case anybody doesn't know, Beth is one of Cheryl's best friends.
Yes.
Yeah, she will be on this podcast in probably a couple months because she's engaged right now, and word on the street is Ryan and I might be able to plan their honeymoon. So, so stay tuned a couple months from now for that. But yeah, she was my co-host on my previous podcast. So yeah.
I think we actually recorded me driving through LA with her recording and talking to me at the same time. So.
Yes, I remember that episode.
Which, by the way, driving in LA is not as bad as everybody seems to make it out to be.
I mean,
it's traffic. Traffic is traffic. Unless you're in a different country and there's different rules. If you're in the States and you're in traffic, it's like...
Yeah, I didn't feel like stressed about it or anything, so I don't know. I guess that's another thing where I just perceive that maybe it's because of other media where people are just stressed when they're in the traffic that way. And
yeah. I think the thing, at least for me in LA, is just the volume. So like their freeways can have like 5 or 6 lanes across on going one direction, and it's still like bumper to bumper traffic. Whereas, like, at least here in Western Washington, we've got, like, maybe 3 lanes across, right? Yeah. And so the fact that it's that much more traffic, and that there can be traffic any time of day, not just rush hour.
Yeah, we noticed that. It definitely felt like there was just random pockets of traffic everywhere, so...
Yeah. But I think it is... You're right, there is a perception thing about that. That's kind of fun. And there's just a lot of freeways down there, too. I guess would be another piece of the volume. It's just more freeways. But
I had a little bit of fun driving on them, actually. I thought I found my people.
Darryl likes...
What does that mean?
Well, they go the speed limit he prefers.
Yes.
Well, so not the speed limit, then.
Yes.
Speed limit. More than the speed limit.
Yeah.
So it was fun for me to not have to worry about passing everybody. So.
Gotcha.
Yeah. You were not the fastest one on the road.
No, that's true.
So that's good.
That must have been a change for you then.
It was different, yes. I felt more at home driving.
All right, Darryl, we have a couple final questions for you. Based on the name of our podcast, Take Me With You. Now, this is funny because we went together, so I guess I was there.
You did take Cheryl with you.
Yes, so maybe Ryan should ask this one.
So if you could take me with you to just one part of your trip, what would that be?
Oh, man. If I had to take you with me?
Me. Because Cheryl was already there for the whole thing, so.
Yeah.
I think that you would have definitely enjoyed, I probably would have enjoyed watching you at the Geological Museum. There was just such a huge assortment of different things there and plaques for information. And like the fossils were just amazing. I took so many pictures of them.
Cool.
It was really fun. So I think you would have enjoyed just experiencing that. And they were all from the area. So I like things that are like that, where you're like, oh, this actually probably came from like a mile from here. So they didn't just ship it in. So I think you would have enjoyed actually getting to experience that.
Awesome. When are we going?
We got a trip in April, so
yeah, Ryan's gonna be in the Galapagos Islands, so he won't be there.
All right.
Yeah.
So that transitions nicely to our next question. What's your next trip?
My next trip, we are going to actually be going to LA.
Wait, there's one sooner.
Oh, we're going to Nevada.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to go visit Cheryl's family in Nevada. So that's 2 weeks from now, yeah?
Yeah, really
so
soon.
in a couple weeks, we're going to fly down there and visit them. So
yeah.
Just be nice to actually get to meet some more of her family and spend some
Cool.
time with them.
Yeah, it'll be grandparent hang times. So I think actually for like introvert rest travel, you're going to love it, because I think we're just mainly going to be like
I
chilling
relate
at
very
their
well
house.
to old people who don't do anything.
That's what Cheryl's saying.
I don't think it will be that like trying of a trip or anything, so that will be nice. So.
Yeah, it'll be nice. It'll be another good experience on a plane for me, and kind of enjoying the time with you. So
yeah, and it'll be smaller planes. All the planes we're taking are only 2 seats on each side, and so I couldn't use my strategy, but then also like it's just us.
Doesn't
so
matter.
Nice. So,
did.
yeah.
And I'm just gonna say, pay attention to the amount of legroom in the window seat on this plane compared to the last plane you were on.
I've never thought about that before, actually. So
because you've never needed to.
yeah,
I have short legs, so I never thought about it either.
Yeah.
I
That'll
think
be
about it
fun.
all the
A
time.
little fun exercise for us. And we're going to be doing a transferring flights in that one too, because we're flying out of Yakima, which is a tiny airport. Which because we could drive to Seattle and fly out of there, or fly from Yakima to Seattle to Reno, and it's like pretty comparable in the amount of time it like adds to your trip, because it's either driving or flying, but with flying you have like a layover. But right now with the government shutdown and TSA being kind of a hot mess, we figured doing security at a tiny airport sounded more desirable than doing security at SeaTac.
Sure.
So we won't have to go through security there, which I think that's going to be a good plan for us. So we'll see how it goes.
See.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, and do you have any travel questions for us?
Ooh, that's a good question. So I am a new traveler, and I've had a lot of experience with Cheryl giving me advice and, walking me through a lot of things, but I feel like getting one person's input on a lot of things is a little bit limited. So she's very good at packing light. What do you consider your essentials? Like 5 things that you'd have to take with you, Ryan.
Only 5?
Yeah, you could take more, but if you had to only take 5, what would they be? Not close, just...
Like, I don't travel without blank.
Yes.
Is that what you mean?
Yeah. I mean, don't count your clothes or your...
Okay, that's what I was going to say. I was just underwear? I mean, like,
everybody needs
underwear.
clothes, but imagine, aside from that, like, what's your conveniences? What do you say, this is a convenience, but I need this?
I see. Okay, I gotcha. The 5 things that I would definitely travel with, beyond, like, clothes and toiletries and those sorts of things. I would say a cell phone, like a smartphone, for sure. I use it. I think Cheryl and I have a fairly different perspective on cell phones during travel, because Cheryl has talked about in previous episodes how she likes to go phone free as much as possible and try and just use like regular maps and things. And I think I do the opposite. Well, not the opposite. I use my phone a lot while traveling. I'll download apps like while in country to use like their train system or whatever it is. I'll use Google Maps on my phone to figure out how to get places and where things are, to plan out my next day, like all that sort of thing. And to me, that's kind of like my safety net in a sense, that I can get things figured out no matter where I am and what ends up happening. So I think that's definitely one that I bring. What else do I make sure that I bring? I always travel with food, and it's generally what?
I've learned that I probably should, because I learned that Darryl gets hangry and that I need emergency snacks in order to have a pleasant travel companion.
It's kind of like having a mom with the bag full of candy for her kid.
Yeah.
But
So
I mean,
I
that's
will
kind
start
of like
doing
me.
that.
So my mom learned when I was younger, like when I would go shopping and she would like take me shopping, like we had to go shopping or whatever. And I was a kid and I would get super, super like bad attitude, grumpy. And she figured out that I was hungry. And it was of course before people had coined the term hangry. So she just said that I had low blood sugar. She figured out if she fed me, I was much more pleasant to continue to shop with. So yeah, I think part of it is like, you never know. A lot of the travel that I do is to Europe. And so there's like ridiculously long layovers sometimes. And I may be out in the middle of, I may be helping run camp or whatever, and not always necessarily being able to just stop wherever I want to get some food. And so that way I've got something if I'm just hungry or whatever. And water. I also always travel with a water bottle. So that I've got some water, or at least access to water.
What type of water bottle do you like to travel with?
Ooh, that's a good question.
I mean, I'm not a big like
water bottle
snob. Yes, exactly.
So you're not going to judge me because I don't have a
my
hydro flask.
Yeah, definitely do not have a hydro flask. There's no way I'm going to spend that much money on a water bottle.
I
know,
love my
Cheryl.
hydro flask.
I know. And I'm not saying that it is a bad water bottle or that it is a bad use of money, but for me, it is not worth it. Like, does it hold water? Can I keep using it over and over again? Great. That I bought like a 2-pack at Target for $10 or something like that.
Now, have you tried collapsible water bottles?
No, I didn't know that was a thing.
They're pretty cool. I have one, and I brought it to Europe one time, and it was fantastic. And it had a carabiner on it too, so it gets super tiny because it's more like a rubbery texture.
Basically, like a rubber sack that collapses when it's empty.
Yeah, and so it rolls up. And like the part you drink through is hard plastic, but everything else rolls up really tiny. So when you don't have water in it, it's hardly taking any space in your luggage. And then when you do have water in it, it just acts like a water bottle. That one's kind of weird because it's all like floppy while you're drinking out of it.
Oh, that would be weird.
Yeah, and then they make other ones that are more like if Ziplocs were really thick, like that type of material, like a pouch. And so
giant adult Capri Sun that you can refill.
Yeah,
or like the like whatever the thing is, the camel packs, right? Like for backpacking.
Yeah, like those. Yeah, those would be a similar thing. So you could try that sometime if you wanted. I
could.
Yeah.
Or I could stick with my 2 for $10.
But yeah, I'd recommend those to people. Yeah. Cool.
I mean, I don't know that I would have much more than that. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff that I tend to bring, like, like a converter for electronics and stuff like that. But I don't know that those are necessarily, I don't know. I don't have anything super exciting. I'm sorry.
Not a convenience that you need to have.
I mean, if I want to plug stuff in, I definitely have to have, that.
So it's interesting what you're saying about my cell phone usage. I really like having a cell phone when I travel. I don't care for having data. So when I'm out and about, I don't want to be looking at my phone very much. When I'm in my hotel at night, I will look up walking directions to the place I'm going tomorrow, or metro directions or checking email or messaging people or going through photos or, or like different things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Is that because you'd like to be more present and experience it as opposed to having the distraction in your hand?
Yeah. And then also I want the challenge of trying to figure out directions because I suck at them.
I've learned that, that's an interesting challenge that you would want.
Yeah. Because, I want to get good at it.
Yeah.
And if I have my phone always tell me directions, I don't get good at it myself. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah.
Yeah. Whereas I'm already confident in that ability for myself. Mm-hmm. And I don't feel like if I'm somewhere else that I may or may not be back to, whether or not I remember how to get somewhere is not super critical for me. That doesn't necessarily need to take up space in my brain. And I'm paranoid. So when I'm like, for example, like with train times or whatever, I will check the time that it's supposed to arrive. And I'm probably not exaggerating, 15 times before the train actually comes. And so I want the data to get the most up-to-date information because if the train time changes or if I'm like, wait, is it actually this train or not this train? Because I'm not 100% confident I fully understand the way this particular system works or whatever. And again, like I said, it's kind of like that security blanket, like to be able to make sure that I know that it's correct. Whereas if I just do it in my hotel and then I go out, I don't have the confidence that I understood it enough.
Second guess yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think I fall more on the side of Ryan.
That's
like
fair,
that.
yeah.
I feel like I've got a pretty good innate sense of stuff, but checking for me is that I feel more comfortable. This is my blanket, like Linus's blanket. That's kind of what it is for me.
That's a good
I think for me, though,
it.
the biggest reason is being present. And so I would totally be down to like have data on an international trip as long as I mainly still kept my phone away.
Just turn it on airplane mode the time you don't need it.
Yeah.
See, and I guess for me, that's not as much of an issue. Like a fair amount of my travel where I've been doing that stuff, I've been by myself. So I don't need to necessarily be present as far as like cutting other people out. And I don't generally have an issue of getting distracted by my phone.
I think another thing with mine is that it's my camera. So
yes,
exactly. Yeah.
I mean, that's what I want to have with me to take those pictures.
Yes.
So.
But you can do that part without the data.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's what I mainly did on my last trip is actually I brought my big camera and a lot of days didn't bring it out just because I wanted to bring a small purse and not have a lot of stuff on me.
And anymore, the phone cameras are almost just as big,
so I brought my camera a couple times when I was like, I'm going to go shooting. But if I was just going out to do a variety of things, I was like, I don't want this big thing. And so, Can I share things?
Are you asking me or are you
yes,
asking
Cheryl.
Ryan?
I'm asking you because you asked the question.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So one that I like, speaking of phones, is a portable battery charger.
Oh, yeah. That's a good
I like
one.
that a lot with just your USB plug-in and you charge that in your hotel. So that's a good one. And they're really small. A Kindle is really nice because it is nice to read when you're like on a train or different things.
I don't know how you can read in a public place. I cannot do that.
I think I can only read in a public place.
You're like, I'm going to go sit in this coffee shop where there's 100 people and read. I would just be staring at everybody and be like, you're all distracting me from my quiet time.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so I love bringing that because then it, again, takes up hardly any space and then it's kind of like all the entertainment, that you need. Collapsible water bottle is a solid one. What are my other drugs? Are good.
Sure. To, get some little extra money for your souvenirs.
You never know.
Yeah, got it.
So I always bring with me NyQuil, Dayquil, Excedrin, and Midol. So,
explain your use for all of them. Please.
Yeah, so NyQuil and Dayquil because sometimes, first of all, sometimes for flying, I have little tiny ears, so if I'm having a hard time with like air pressure, that like opens up your system, so that's good. And then NyQuil's nice as well if you're like in a new time zone and really wanting to just pass out. That'll do it. Excedrin, because if I get a headache, that really will slow me down. And
it's got caffeine in it.
Yes.
We all love caffeine.
Yeah, so that's good. And then Midol because I'm a woman. So
Yeah. So Cheryl, I'd be curious, how often do you make use of those?
not not super often, but often enough that like I just have a little container with all of those in it that I just keep with my other travel supplies and then just throw in my bag.
Can I share about our little trip back where you
Oh, tell them.
So we had some fun turbulence on the way back in on the flight, and I felt fine. It wasn't bothering me too much. Cheryl got severe motion sickness.
Really?
Yeah, like,
which I've never gotten.
We landed and she hustled so quickly to the restroom.
Yeah.
And I felt really bad for her. I was like, I'm the one that should be like a little worried about this and feeling sick. You've done this a billion times.
Yeah, it was probably the top 3, like in my top 3 of like turbulence experiences. It was a lot of turbulence. My top one was during this huge storm in Seattle that like Seattle lost power for like a week and a half, and I landed during the storm, and that was even that one I've never gotten motion sickness on an airplane before, and I don't know what happened exactly, but like it just hit me. And so that was,
you were tired. It may have been part of it, I think. So yeah, it was interesting though, because you said it was really bad turbulence. I was like, it didn't really bother me. So
good.
Yeah, I think that overall it might just be a good sign for flight air travel for me.
Because if you can handle that level, then you're fine. Like,
that's good to know.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are going to do Wish You Were Here. So each of us is going to highlight a travel attraction from our many travels that we've all done, and kind of share about something that we think is cool. So Darryl, would you like to go first?
Sure. So mine is actually going to stay in kind of the same vein as most of what I've talked about. The Oregon Zoo. It is probably my favorite zoo, even more so than the San Diego Zoo. I've been there a dozen times. It's amazing. Their habitats are perfectly done. It's not overwhelmingly large. They've got a very large variety of animals. It's very enjoyable the way they do the educational side of everything for it. So I really enjoy that zoo. It's probably one that if I lived anywhere near there within a 3-hour drive, I'd have a year pass to. It's just that kind of place. So, I mean, I loved it there.
Where is it in Oregon?
Yeah. It's it's in Portland, actually.
Okay.
So yeah, it's in downtown Portland. Downtown, right around near downtown area. So it's also very convenient for when you're done to go out and get food or, just go around to Powell's or anything else down there. So.
Fun. Yay.
So what's your favorite exhibit at the Portland Zoo?
Ooh, that is so tough. I think that they do a much better job than any of the other ones with the African animals. I don't typically enjoy going to the African animal ones just because their habitats are usually just dirt. But this one is very well done because it's a little bit more secluded. You walk in and it's kind of, they're still mostly dirt, but they also have a lot more grasslands there. It's a lot more well established. I think it's just because they've had that that exhibit for so much longer that they've kind of got a lot more of the animals set up and everything's well done.
Cool. Cheryl, how about you?
Okay, so I am going to share about the George Ranch Historical Park in Houston, Texas. It's so cool. I went there in 5 or 6 years ago, and it represents over 100 years of history in Houston, and just through like one family line and 5 different homes that were on that property or near that property. So I think it's like most of them are 30 years apart or 20 to 30 years apart, and then they have actors in the homes like wearing clothing from that time period and acting like it's their house, and so you kind of go through the George family's history by walking into these different houses, and they tell you like, here's my home and this is what we do here and these are my clothes, and just kind of like what life is like and everything. And so some of the houses were actually in their original locations on that property, and then some of them they had to move there, which is always impressive when buildings get moved. I don't understand how that works. But So yeah, it was really fun. The first one's like a pioneer type one, and then and that guy, that actor in there was like the most into it out of all the actors. So it's funny because they were like, "Oh, this building's so cool," and he was like, "Thanks, I built it myself," and stuff like that. Also, so I went with my siblings, and my sister Lisa likes to be pretty like technical about things, and so it was funny because one of the ones, this woman was sharing like all the layers of clothing that the women wore back then, which is just crazy in Houston. It is so hot. Like, come on, history people, like, be nicer to women. But so she was like, okay, I'm going to show you all the layers they wore, and then she randomly selected Lisa from the crowd.
Oh, no.
Mistake on her part. And said, I want you to count how many layers. And so it was like, here's a petticoat, and here's this, and here's this. And the answer was 10 total, but it was 10 articles of clothing. And so Lisa was like, well, technically there's 8 layers on the bottom and 2 layers on top, so it would be 8. Because there aren't more than 8 layers. Ryan, I feel like you would do that too, actually.
No, I appreciate that. I definitely appreciate that.
But yeah, it's really fun. It was so interesting. A really unique experience as well. And so I definitely recommend, if you're in the Houston area, to go check that out.
Cool.
How about you, Ryan?
So mine actually is somewhat similar to last week's guest. So Don Wilson last week shared about going to the Great Wall of China and taking the sled thing down the Great Wall of China. Do you remember that, Cheryl?
Yeah, that I still don't believe that it's real, but yes, I do remember her telling us. Okay.
Okay.
CGI is pretty impressive these days. That's all I want to say.
So mine is not quite the same thing. It's not in China, and there's no Great Wall. But it is downhill, so I guess that's related. And this is in Slovenia. So I've talked about Slovenia before, and I will probably be talking about it again. There is a city in the kind of northwestern-ish portion of the country called Bled. And there's an amazingly beautiful lake there and an island in the middle of the lake. I think I've mentioned this before. Have I mentioned this before?
Yeah, Ryan, I think you've told me about it, as we've talked about your travels there. I don't think on this podcast you've mentioned it before, though.
Okay. So anyway, it's a beautiful town that has this kind of big lake. There's no electrical motored boats allowed on the lake. There's an island in the middle. It's gorgeous. And in the wintertime, they do a lot of skiing and stuff up there because it'll be snowy, and sometimes the whole lake will freeze over and things like that. But in the summer, when I've been there, they do what I know quite a few places will do. They take one of their ski hills and they change it into what they call a toboggan. And so you take the chairlift up, and then there's this single metal track that runs down, and it kind of curves from the top all the way down to the bottom of the chairlift. And so you get up to the top, and first of all, there's a beautiful panoramic view of the lake with the island and the town and all that stuff that's just gorgeous. So that's just the view itself is great. But then there's these little yellow, I don't really know how to describe them. They're plastic single-person toboggans, I guess, but they're kind of like little pods.
I'm looking at pictures right now. I just Google image Lake Bled, Slovenia toboggan.
Yeah.
And it looks like a full-grown adult is sitting in a child's little plastic play car where they use their feet.
Yeah, that's kind of what it looks like. Yeah, and they're yellow. They're bright yellow. And so you sit there, and there's only enough room for one person, and it sits on top of this track. And so the track runs down the middle of the little pod thing. And so it's got wheels underneath that kind of clamp onto the side. And then there's it's like a joystick kind of, but it's like a handle that you can push forward or pull towards you. And it's all gravity controlled, and that's a brake. And this was the thing for me that's wonderful. I do not like roller coasters because I don't like the feeling of when you drop Like, I don't like
Yep.
that feeling.
Yep.
And that's what most people love about roller coasters. And
Yep.
I actually do not like that feeling. So what's cool about this is you can get going. And I was looking on their website. Top speed is about 25 miles per hour. So you can get cruising pretty fast, especially since you're not in a car. It's just like you like cruising down and there's all these turns. But if you feel like you're going too fast, you can brake and you can slow yourself down. So you're in complete control, and it's super fun. So like you're going down and you can whip around these corners and going real fast. And I don't know, it's just really, really fun. So, and they call it, what is it? I looked it up. They call it, Straja. I mean, and I don't know if that's the actual event or if it's like the whole thing. Because there's like a high ropes course up there at the top and a whole bunch of other things as well.
Nice.
But yeah, it's super fun. So that would be my wish you were here.
So fun. Oh, man. Well, Darryl, thanks for being on our podcast.
Of course, it's fun.
Yeah, thanks, Darryl. We appreciate you coming on and telling us about your first flight experience. That's going to do it for us for this episode of Take Me With You. We would love if you would follow us on social media. We are at TMWY Podcast, TMWY for Take Me With You Podcast on all of the socials. We'll be posting pictures on Instagram, and we'd love for you to follow us and see some cool things. You could also tag us if you take a cool trip and want to show us something cool, because we would love to know about more cool things around for travel. Please do that so we can follow you as well.
Yeah, you can also email us at timwepodcast@gmail.com. Send us your travel questions or stories, or maybe you have a travel tip for us. We would love to hear it.
We would love to hear from you about ideas for things you'd like us to cover in our podcast, or guests that you think would be cool. Maybe you would be a cool guest. Not only can you email us, but you can also call us and leave us a voicemail, and then we could even put you on the air. Wouldn't that be fun? You can call us at 406-763-8699, or you could think of it as 406 Pod Timwe. We'd also love it if you would rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast on all of the different podcasty things, whichever ones you happen to be using, so that more people can hear about our podcast and the cool travel stories of our guests.
Yeah, as always, thank you so much to Beth Morrell for our awesome artwork. You can check out more of her artwork at Beth Is Something.
Thanks, Beth. All right, that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you, Darryl, for sharing. And until next time, take me with you.
Take me with you.